Good evening and welcome into the Right Wing Podcast. We're on episode 7. I'm Jarrod Wright. I got a great show planned out for y'all tonight. I'm fired up about it. I've done a lot of looking into this show. It's going to be on Russia and Ukraine. We had some major news out of Russia, Ukraine war, this whole situation going on. Some major news dropped today, the last couple of days. I want to dive into it. I want to dive into the history of the war. I want to dive into exactly what is going on there. I'm super excited for it. You know, we're working as always against weather. I might hear some raindrops. I apologize. We're doing what we can here. I mean, every time I try to film an episode of this, it's like the rain starts coming. Satan's trying his hardest to stop it. But nonetheless, we move forward. We move on. Right? Adapt and overcome. I think that's a Marine saying. But, I'm fired up to talk about Russia and Ukraine. We've probably seen it in the news. You've seen exactly what's going on. You see war going on. You see them upset with one another. And there's narratives that are pushed constantly. And I'm not going to say they're wrong. I'm not going to say they're right. Because really, to me, this is an opinionated situation. You have to formulate an opinion because there's no clear right and wrong to this situation. And that's my take on it. I have my opinion on who I feel is closer to being correct. You might be able to take my tone, my bias as I speak and figure that out. But I go back and forth. There's really and truly my main take on the United States being involved in the Russia and Ukraine war is that we shouldn't be. Why are we here? Why are we involved in this war? Has nothing to do with us. Why are we giving funding? All right, we're going to get into some of that. We're going to get into NATO. We're going to get into a lot of things that have to pertain to this war because this is not a war that just happened. And you have to understand the history because I looked into it a lot. And I'm not going to say that I'm an expert on this subject, but I really went down a deep research dive into the Russian and Ukraine war and what caused it. And this is nothing great. This is 34 years, 35 years of conflict, if not more, that kind of ended up being what it is today. All right, and so going back to the very beginning, how did this war start? What can we take from this? Russia and Ukraine, they've been interconnected. They've been tied together for decades, if not centuries, you could even say. I mean, they are essentially one thing, one entity almost. They were for a while under the USSR. They were technically one entity. And most of what we know as Ukraine was more or less part of Russia. I think the statistic is like 91% of the time that it's really been its own nation or whatever. It's been a part of Russia. So primarily, Ukraine has been in Russia. When it was part of the USSR, it was like almost like its own state. It could do kind of like make its own laws. It had its own people. They kind of identified as themselves, but they're part of this greater thing, which is the USSR. It's still all kind of right there tied together, like I said. It wasn't officially a province, but more or less it was. And this goes back for, hundreds of years. Right? This land was tied there as it was part of Russia really since like the 1700s, you could say. They called it ancestral land to Russia. That's a term that I heard for it. So this isn't like the United States and South Africa. Like this isn't like two things separated. These are countries right next to each other. This is almost like the United States and California or something, right? And California decided to be its own state. And I won't get into that example later because I think just speaking of California might make us understand the situation better coming from the perspective of different people. So when you go back in 1991, the USSR dissolves and Ukraine technically becomes a nation. That's kind of whenever the start of a full-on Ukraine state, Ukraine nation really began. And, that's whenever you see the conflict start. There was a treaty in 1997 between Russia and this new state of Ukraine. And this treaty in 1997, it basically allowed for Russia to keep its ships parked in Crimea's port until 2042. And Crimea is this city that's kind of in between the two. It's technically in Ukraine, and it's mostly Russian. It is mostly Russian. everybody there identifies as Russian and not really Ukrainian. And this is a very important port because it is right there where the pipelines are running across. So this is like Russia's main exporting right there of oil and gas and such. And it actually goes over the Ukrainian land, well, what is now Ukraine. And so this is a important little city because it identifies as Russian. It's in Ukraine. It's a trade port. There's actually a naval base there, if I remember correctly. The only warm water naval base that Russia has is in this city, which isn't even technically in Russia anymore. So this is a very important city. It comes up time and time and time again. And in 2014 now, you fast forward a whole lot. There's a lot of conflict in between this. I just wrote down 2014 next. But in 2014, what you have is a Ukrainian president. His name is Viktor, I'm going to try to say this, Viktor Yanukovych. Very odd spelling. This is a Russian, this is an Eastern European name, right? Viktor with a K, Yanukovych. He ends up kind of coming and going out of power there. And there was all kinds of uproar with these elections with him. There's another guy, I can't even begin to pronounce his last name. His first name was also Victor. Kind of back and forth in this little presidential race in Ukraine. And the thing about this Viktor Yanukovych is that he was a supporter of Russia. Not NATO, Russia. He kind of wanted to be friends with Moscow, with Russia, with Putin, with whoever. He kind of wanted to be tied in with them. He was very pro-Russia. And he gets pushed out of office. He's in office. And more or less, he just has to be forcibly stepped down, I guess you could call it. And indirectly, America had a big role in this. You see afterwards that Hunter Biden makes a ton of money being an advisor to the new guy they bring in. So, I mean, the Bidens had influence. This was at a time when Obama was in office. Joe Biden, very closely intertwined. Hunter Biden makes a ton of money off of this exchange. It's very good for NATO, which we're a part of. I'm going to get into more NATO in just 1 second. And he gets pushed out. And Russia, understanding that Ukraine is not very strong at this point, decides now's our chance. And more or less, I think they technically said it was like a civilian thing, but Russia overtakes Crimea. They take it. They're kind of a weakened state. They don't really know who their leader is. So Russia moves in. They take this city of Crimea, which is essentially theirs. It's all theirs. Like 97% of the people there said that they wanted for it to be in Russia. And so then this is whenever things really get going with NATO. I say really get going as if it hadn't been. There's rumors that NATO was funding money. That I say NATO itself. The members of NATO were funding money to basically push this anti-Russia agenda in Ukraine. That's kind of what led to this coup of Yanukovych, Viktor Yanukovych, being kind of pushed out. There's rumors of that. There's lots of people who said that they were offered money to go protest and be in the streets and such. And so you can kind of derive what you want. But we need to understand what is NATO before we go any further. NATO is a big alliance, North Atlantic Alliance. And it's supposed to be a defense alliance. It was essentially made right after World War II as hey, we don't trust the Soviet Union anymore, so let's get all the big boys together. We're going to be in an alliance. If you attack one of us, you're attacking all of us. That's like the idea of it. Don't attack us. It was supposed to be able to keep peace, keep world peace, saying we don't want another world war. And that would hopefully, people wouldn't like the idea of attacking all these people. There were originally 12 countries in NATO. They were mostly Western world countries. Pretty much all Western world countries. The United States was in it, United Kingdom, I believe. France was in it, Belgium was in it. There's 12 countries, whatever. And NATO kind of acted anti-Soviet for a long time. It was really built because there was distrust with the Soviet Union. When you hear about the Cold War, I mean, that's really honestly what probably kind of deterred the Soviet Union from pushing more like an actual attack, it wouldn't surprise me as NATO. So I'm not going to say in its beginning it wasn't a terrible thing, but as it grows, you see this strong anti-Russia approach. And what NATO does is this group of countries, which the United States is really at the forefront of, we give so much money, way more than we should be giving. We give more than anybody. We give a higher percentage of our GDP than anybody. We just give money into this for weaponry and for everything else. What's happened is this idea of NATO keeps moving more and more and more eastward towards Russia. And as it gets closer, Russia starts getting more nervous because now you're literally surrounding them with these countries where basically they're in this massive alliance with all the other superpowers in the world, other than China and India, which has a lot to do with BRICS. If you've heard of BRICS, it's basically the same thing, but the other guys. It's Russia, India, China, Brazil, I think. But they slowly start pushing in. There's charts with colored maps of these countries and how you literally see NATO's influence moving eastward. Like every decade, 2 decades, they get another country here. And what ends up happening is these countries that were originally part of the USSR that then broke up into their own countries, all in Eastern Europe, guess what? All of them start being a part of NATO now. Or if anything happens with Putin, with Russia, now all these countries, if he attacks them, if they attack him first and he attacks, he retaliates, now the whole world's coming down on him. And he realizes it's not necessarily a great thing. Well, Putin unofficially offers and says, hey, I want to be a part of NATO. I'm cool with this trade. I'm cool. Let's do it. Let's be friends. And he kind of just gets rejected because I think the people in NATO realize how lucrative it is for the defense industry. Whenever you have this entity that's just pouring so much money into defense spending, into weapons, into tanks, into all the artillery, it's good for the defense industry. And these people got their hands in the honeypot, right? They're reaching, they're getting some kickbacks on that. So if Putin joins, the whole reason for NATO is pretty much so Russia's the reason it was created. So if we let Russia in, then what's the point of having NATO anymore? That's the idea behind it and why they really didn't want him to be in there. And it kind of was like, hey, I don't really like that idea. I want to be a part, so why won't you let me? I'm trying to work for peace. And so it kind of rubs him the wrong way. And that's understandable. Over the course, you see several negotiations between Ukraine and Russia and what's going to be whose, NATO, nukes. There's a lot that goes into this. Nuclear bombs has a lot to do with it. Who has the nuclear bombs? Who has nuclear weaponry? Who's allowed to keep it? Ukraine more or less surrendered theirs because they were wanting to join NATO, this whole peace treaty thing. Russia did not want Ukraine to join NATO because they want to maintain Crimea, however you say it, and they don't want there to be completely encircled, pretty much. That's what they really don't want. They don't want to be completely entrapped because on the other side's water. They don't have anywhere to go. They don't have anywhere to think about going. Well, throughout all this, Ukraine ends up vowing to retake Crimea. That's their goal. I believe this was around, say, 2019. More or less, Ukraine's we want the city back. It's a big port city, if I'm not mistaken. So this is a pretty important city. You would want it in your country. And then what you see next, and this is what just blows my mind. And to me, this is what sets this war off. The United States and NATO, put back by the United States, comes in around Russia and all these states, all these nations that are now a part of NATO. It just starts parking artillery and tanks and weaponry and soldiers pointed right at Russia. Pretty much saying, hey, we got our finger on the trigger, do something. We're just waiting for you to do something. And it's putting the pressure on Putin. And you can imagine, and I'm going to get into this whole putting ourselves in the same situation thing, but why would he not be upset about that? Why would he not be upset about that? He ends up fully invading Ukraine in 2022 because what else is he going to do? Is he going to sit there and just be mocked with guns pointed at him, or is he going to fight back? I mean, that's truly the way that I see him viewing this, is am I going to be mocked or am I going to fight back for my country? But In all reality, like I said, what would you do if we're in the same situation? I mentioned California later. Let's just say, for instance, that we weren't a part of NATO. Let's just say this was BRICS decided that they're the world superpowers and that California, like they view us as the United States as a problem, and they're going to make California its own country. They deserve their own land. So now California is its own country, and there's all kinds of upsettingness. Like we want Los Angeles; it's a trade city. We want the money coming from some of the bigger cities, and we would like California back. Let's just say that then BRICS and Russia came in and parked all of their weapons pointed, right outside at Washington and Oregon and Nevada and New Mexico and all those states kind of right there around Arizona, and just pointed all their weapons right there. Like, hey, California's a state. We're going to protect them, by the way. We believe they're a state. They deserve to be protected, and we're going to put all of our guns pointed at you. What the heck do you think that we're going to do? I would be like, hey, yeah, let's go freaking fight these idiots. Like, let's go freak some things up, Like, don't come into my country, what should be my country, and point your guns at me and claim that it's independent, because I don't believe it was. Ukraine, is it a state? Yes. Was it recognized as its own independent nation? Yes. It's been Russian for years. And it's this constant back and forth. I didn't even get into all of it, where more or less NATO goes back on promises over and over and over. They don't want Putin in there. And they just keep on, doing things that are anti-Russia, anti-Putin. And he doesn't like it. I mean, he's a nationalist. I don't blame him for being a nationalist. I'm a nationalist for the United States. That's where my political viewpoints come from, except his is for Russia. He loves his country. There's honor in that. So what do we expect him to do is kind of what I'm getting at. And now, before I go any further, let's clarify something. I don't think that either side of this war is innocent. Putin has killed innocent people. He's killed civilians, quite a few of them, probably tens of thousands, probably around 30,000, I think is the number I saw. He has killed people that are innocent. He has done things that aren't necessarily that honorable in some ways. And I do put him at fault for that. Like, man, at least do it the right way. And the same with Ukraine. They've killed civilians. They've taken the money. I mean, the United States has just funneled money into Ukraine like crazy. Billions upon billions upon billions of dollars. Where there are rumors, this is like $175 billion, by the way. And there are rumors that of all that money, like 50% or more is just kind of given to like Ukrainian gangsters, like mobsters there. People on the streets, not the military, not going towards any real cause. Our tax money, keep that in mind, this is my cash, your cash, $175 billion to criminals on the streets. That's kind of where a lot of it's been. Now, I said $175 billion. That's how much we've total and given. It's about half of that, and what is rumored to be going there. But regardless, why are we giving them so much money? And no wonder it makes Putin mad. We haven't given him anything. And that's not to say that Ukraine is somewhat defenseless in this situation. The government of Ukraine obviously doesn't want another country coming and taking them over, which is fair. But at the same time, and this is kind of where I go, why are we involved in this? Why do we give two rips? And it goes to a lot of things. One, Zelensky, Ukrainian's president, he's a big Jew guy. I know that he supports Israel, whether publicly or not. We support Israel to no end. That plays a big role. The Jews that are in Israel right now are originally from Ukrainian, Eastern European lands. That's no big surprise. That's the truth. They're not from that area. They're not even ethnically really Jewish people. There's the reason DNA tests are banned in Israel, and it's crazy how everything manages to come back to that little bitty state, that little bitty nation of Israel. All right, that plays such a major role in everything. It'll blow your mind. But Zelensky plays a role in this, and I don't really support what he does. I'm not a big fan of him. I'm not a huge fan of Putin, but I respect him as a leader. I think he is a good leader of his people. I will say that about Putin. But just moving forward, what we have seen going on right now is Trump more or less issued a 10-day ultimatum to Russia. He said, we're going to end this war. We're going to at least give a ceasefire. And so it has worked out. There's been some communication back and forth this week. Trump and Putin are going to meet. They're going to have a summit. They're going to meet together in person. I believe it's going to happen the rumor has it, I think I heard it's going to happen at the Vatican, which is kind of an odd in between. But hey, you know what? We're all for it. Go meet at the Vatican. Expected terms that I have seen, an immediate truce, immediate ceasefire of all offensive campaigns. No more offensive firing back and forth. Shut it down. Russia will maintain Crimea, the city, as theirs. There'll be security guarantees for Ukraine with defense weaponry in case this happens again. Kind of as like a little security blanket for Ukraine. And Ukraine will not be a part of NATO as long as Russia respects the country lines that will be drawn. We'll veto their NATO bid. Prisoner of war exchanges back and forth, and they're working towards a long-term treaty within the next 5 years. Those are the terms that I saw that everybody's cool with, because at this point, it's burnt out. I mean, these two have been fighting, and it's a stalemate. I think Russia really expected to win sooner and easier than it's really been. I think they're still winning. And part of the reason we see what we're seeing right now, I spoke on my Instagram today. Why would Russia back down without getting what they want? They're winning. Why back down? The United States is kind of sat here just like, acting like they're going to do something they never really did other than give money and support through NATO to Ukraine. And through Putin's eyes, why should he back down? Why would he not get what he wants in this treaty or this ceasefire? Because that makes no sense. He's winning the war. If he's not going to get something favorable, okay, I'm just going to keep on going until you give me something favorable. So I understand where he's coming from in that sense, in this war. But it really has kind of come into this, I'm not going to say stalemate, but it's just an ongoing thing where you're losing lives, you're spending money left and right. What's the point? Again, why are we involved? Beyond me, but what's the point? And something else I think we should think about is Russia even a legitimate threat to us? I mean, honestly, is Russia a legitimate threat? I don't really think so. They have a nuclear storage, obviously. Why are we scared of Russia? There's bigger things we should be scared of. I'm more scared of China, who's buying up all of our farmlands, who's buying up all the farmland specifically around our military bases in the United States. That's a problem. You want to talk about issues? China's buying all this land through LLCs and such, and we're letting them for God knows what reason. So I'm more scared of China for that reason. I'm terrified of Israel and what they bring to the table because they've fully infiltrated our government. But Russia's they got some intelligence stuff. They're not really that scary. I mean, they got nukes. Who wants to start a nuclear war? You're going to eliminate 75% of the world's population within the first week. I mean, who wants to start a nuclear war? And outside of nuclear, we probably have them beat in a lot of ways. If you bring this into a full NATO versus BRICS, I mean, now you have essentially the money in NATO and the population in BRICS because you have India involved. And so it's manpower versus machine power. But nobody wants that. Nobody wants World War III, including Putin, including India, including China, including probably the other nations in NATO. They don't want that. And Russia understands if it attacks us, that's what's going to happen. Like I said, I'm much more worried about China and about Israel. Those are the two foreign enemies, primarily Israel, in my opinion, that we should be looking out for. And here we are, we support Israel, blah, blah, blah. That's a bunch of baloney. I've spoke on it. You know what I'm talking about. I don't understand why everyone's such a tizzy about Russia. I really don't. I got that wrote down. Why do we care so much about Russia? Matter of fact, the things that we say Russia's doing, more or less, Israel's doing, China's doing. So why are we so scared of Russia? And that's what this boils down to. And it goes back, too, with the United States and what's going on over there. We're kind of sitting back. It's like we don't want to full-on attack Russia. We don't want that world war because that's what will happen. If we attack Russia, well, now we are in war with China. We are in war with India. We don't want that. We don't have to go through that. And we can't just sit back and let them walk all over us. That's something we can't do. Because then other nations like China and these other big nations are going to just start pushing for whatever they want, taking whatever land they want. That's the idea what happens. So we're kind of stuck in this bad position we put ourselves into by getting involved in the first place. And now, hopefully, we're seeing an end to this. We're going to hopefully see an end. Putin and Trump meeting together, I guess, in some way, shape, form, or fashion with Zelensky. And they're going to put an end to it. And like I said, I went over the expected terms. I think they're somewhat fair given the circumstances, given what's going on, given the casualties, given the money spent, because we're wasting money over there. Everybody is wasting money. Why not come to an end? So, yeah, I mean, I hope y'all enjoyed this episode. I kind of went into some deep history with Russia and Ukraine. Like I said, this goes back 30-something years, and I didn't give you every single little thing, but I think I gave you enough to understand it, comprehend it, get what's going on, understand what's happening this week, and I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed the take. I mean, I do what I can to give you the best news, the best info I can, the most truth that I can. And, yeah, I really do appreciate y'all's support. So, as always, share this around. Let people know we're here. I enjoy doing it. So, yeah, y'all have a great night.